Within her workshop, surrounded by the tools of her trade, the young alchemist Giselle sits at her desk, deep in thought. She turns with a bright smile, having made a decision. She declares her intent to make some alchemy candy. She gets to work immediately, explaining that the method is simple. First, she begins to grate the necessary ingredients with a mortar and pestle. Next, she adds the ground mixture to her alchemy cauldron. With a focused expression, she stirs the contents while continuously casting magic for a quarter of an hour. After the allotted time, she deftly scoops out perfectly formed, spherical candies from the bubbling concoction. She carefully places the finished candies onto a tray, noting that they just need to dry for a while to be complete. Sometime later, alchemist Giselle Starwind walks through the town. The locals greet her warmly, with an elderly woman and a shopkeeper calling out to her. The shopkeeper kindly offers her some of his newly baked cookies. She thanks them profusely, but her gratitude is met with even more generosity. The townspeople insist she take bread and other goods as well, telling her she's young and must eat plenty. Giselle is left flustered by the sheer amount of food being pressed in her arms. Her morning errands eventually lead her to an impressive, half-timbered building, the headquarters of the major alchemy guild, known as the Spirit Cauldron. She steps inside, calling out a cheerful morning greeting. At a nearby desk, a young man with spiky hair looks up, his expression one of clear surprise at her arrival. A stark cry of disbelief echoes through the guild office. The word hangs in the air, directed at Giselle, whose face is a mask of shock. Guildmaster Kudo confirms her fears with a single, devastating word: fired. He explains his reasoning with a smug look, stating it's because she is already 24 years old. Giselle can only ask, why? She protests, reminding him that it was the previous guildmaster, Oral, who specifically requested she assist the newcomers. For 10 years, she has dutifully made simple items for them, but she insists she is capable of creating other, more complex magical tools as well. Kudo dismisses her plea, gesturing to a document and claiming there are no direct commission requests for her. He states that, honestly speaking, the guild must prioritize the royal lamp orders. Giselle counters that this is only a temporary measure for the busy period. The guild master continues, his tone accusatory. He claims there have been complaints that she's being favored and taking it easy. As Giselle processes this, Kudo elaborates on supposed complaints. He alleges that other members, noting her good salary, have demanded raises for themselves. He concludes the matter coldly, handing her a notice. For the guild's convenience, they will provide severance pay, but she must pack her things and leave by the end of the day. The reality of the situation crashes down on Giselle. She had thought she was dedicating herself to the guild, but now she feels she has become a burden. Her mind drifts back to her past, helping her grandmother, the village pharmacist, even before she knew the name alchemy. She recalls being scouted by Oral, who had assured her everything would be okay. The memory of Oral's encouragement continues. He had told her he would teach her properly from the start and arrange for her to stay at an acquaintance's inn in the capital, describing the owners as a kind couple she would like. The flashback ends, and the harsh present returns. Giselle reflects on her journey, moving to the royal capital, joining the Spirit Cauldron Alchemy Guild 9 years and 8 months ago, and spending all that time making only beginner's tools. Now, less than a month after Oral's retirement, she has been fired. She walks with a heavy heart, clutching the box of her belongings as she approaches the Olive Tree Inn. The sting of her dismissal leads her to a somber thought. Perhaps she isn't cut out for making magical tools after all. She forces a bright smile as she enters, announcing her return. Internally, she chides herself, determined not to show the gloomy face that reflects her true feelings. The innkeepers, a kind man and woman, greet her with immediate warmth. The man assures her that even if she quit the guild, she could live at the inn forever. The woman adds that they were truly grateful for her help during the guild's busiest times. Overwhelmed by their kindness, Giselle can only whisper their titles. Innkeeper, Master. Changing the subject, the woman gently places a warm cup of tea in front of her and rests a comforting hand on her shoulder. Once Giselle is settled, the innkeepers join her. The man gently broaches the future, asking if there is anything she wants to do from now on. Giselle stares into her cup, the question echoing in her mind. The man quickly adds that perhaps it's too soon to discuss such things. Feeling lost, Giselle pleads for them to tell her what to do. However, the female innkeeper reveals that she actually had something she wanted to consult Giselle about, though the man cautions her not to push Giselle too hard. Her spirits lift at the chance to be useful. She eagerly tells the woman that she has always been so helpful to her, and that she would be happy to do anything she can to repay that kindness. The woman smiles warmly, telling Giselle not to worry too much as she steps away to the kitchen area. She returns and holds out her hand, revealing a small, candy-like wrapped object. With a gentle expression, she makes a request. I want you to make this. Giselle looks from the object to the woman, confused, and asks if she is the inn guild master. The woman cheerfully clarifies that the request isn't for her. She explains that a while ago, Grandma Vanessa had asked for it, and Giselle's face shows a flicker of recognition at the name. She listened as the innkeeper explained the origin of the request. Apparently, she had once given Grandma Vanessa some candy to help with her bad back. The elderly woman had liked it so much that she asked to purchase it. Energized by the explanation, She declared that she could make it right away and was ready to start immediately. Before she could proceed, however, the innkeeper gently interjected, indicating there was more to discuss. She then revealed that it wasn't just one request. There were many others. The innkeeper presented a large stack of letters, much to the astonishment of both Giselle and the male innkeeper. Her shock quickly morphed into zealous determination. Giselle insisted it was fine, declaring she had plenty of time now. The male innkeeper cried out that there had to be a limit, but the innkeeper explained that Grandma Vanessa had told her acquaintances. Upon seeing the list of clients, which included many noble names, she felt she couldn't refuse. The innkeeper smiled, relieved by Giselle's enthusiastic acceptance. She expressed her gratitude, stating that this helped them a great deal. She then moved on to the matter of price, proposing they sell a bottle of 10 pieces for 5 silver coins. The amount left Giselle utterly speechless. She immediately protested, thinking it was far too expensive. She calculated that such a sum could pay for 2 nights with breakfast at a luxury inn in the capital. The innkeeper, however, simply smiled and reassured her that it was not expensive at all. The male innkeeper then gently apologized, telling her that for now, she wouldn't have to worry about money or work, a stark contrast to her memories of being dismissed by Guild Master Kudo. Giselle simply smiled and shook her head, indicating no apology was needed. Filled with a profound sense of belonging, she clutched her supplies and beamed. The realization that being needed made her happy solidified her resolve. With renewed purpose, she decided to start making the candy right away. A young woman, a baker's assistant, hefts a heavy basket of bread as she walks toward a large, sunlit building that houses a massive tree within its central hall. Inside, she greets an elderly woman, Vanessa, at a counter. "Good morning," she calls out cheerfully. Vanessa thanks her, as always, and asks if that's everything for the delivery. Elsewhere, Giselle lets out a long, weary sigh, her face a mask of utter exhaustion, yet with a faint, satisfied smile. She explains to the innkeeper and Vanessa that she had become so completely absorbed in making her alchemy candy that the sun had risen before she even realized it. The innkeeper, concerned, asks if she stayed up all night. The baker's assistant, having finished her delivery, joins them. She notes Giselle's tired appearance and asks if she's taking the day off from a guild. Giselle looks down, unable to answer directly. Instead, she presents the baker's assistant with a bowl filled with freshly made candies, explaining it's for her father since his supply was running low. With a heavy heart, Giselle adds that it seems her work wasn't enough, implying she's been let go. The baker's assistant reacts with shock, shouting, "Suddenly fired? What?" Her shock quickly melts into a warm, reassuring smile. She tells Giselle not to apologize, insisting that anything she makes is sure to bring someone happiness. She adds that she's especially looking forward to the medicinal candy. The baker's assistant's expression then twists into fury. She seethes about the man who recently became the new guildmaster, declaring she couldn't stand his face from the moment she saw him. She clenches her fist, vowing to throw rock salt at him if he ever shows up. Giselle, however, interrupts her friend's tirade with a bright, determined smile. She reassures them both that she will be fine, declaring that she is actually excited for the work that lies ahead. Vanessa looks on with admiration, remarking that this resilience is just what she'd expect from Giselle. She is overjoyed when the baker's assistant offers to celebrate her new start by having her husband bake an orange pound cake, a treat Giselle exclaims she loves. As the assistant turns to fetch it, a sudden noise from outside catches her attention, as well as Grandma Vanessa's. Giselle looks on, momentarily paused. Before she can leave, Giselle extends a hand, offering them some of her new alchemy candy. She explains that the red-striped ones help with stiff shoulders, the blue polka-dotted ones are for back pain, and the green leaf-patterned ones aid fatigue recovery. Grandma Vanessa marvels at such a thoughtful creation. Pleased with the reaction, she hums to herself contentedly while wrapping one of the candies in a small piece of paper. Her attention then shifts to her desk, where she sees a large stack of letters, realizing she has a significant number of requests to address. The baker's assistant, looking over her shoulder, remarks on the passion evident in the requests, noting that one is so detailed it spans 3 sheets of stationery. Giselle looks at the letters with renewed determination. Inspired, she decides to send a reply letter to each person, making sure to include an introduction to her alchemy candy. With a firm resolve, she sets her hand on her desk and begins organizing the mail, ready to begin her work as a carrier bird waits nearby. As she starts writing the product introduction, she pauses to consider the practical details, such as the price and how many candies will be included in a single jar. She carefully pens the cautions, stating that since the candy has medicinal effects, only 1 piece should be eaten per day. The note also advises consulting a doctor if symptoms persist, an instruction she emphasizes with wavy lines. She stretched with a yawn, noticing through the window that dusk had settled. So much time had passed while she was engrossed in her work. The realization struck her. She was late. It was already time to help with dinner. With a start, she hurried to get going. She rushed downstairs to find the innkeepers waiting. The innkeeper thanked her for the alchemy candy she had provided earlier. To her surprise, his wife added that the local baker had also sent a beautiful celebration cake. Giselle stared at the sparkling dessert in awe. Together, they enjoyed a wonderful meal, with Giselle happily savoring a piece of the delicious cake. The next morning, she awoke feeling completely refreshed and full of energy, declaring that she would do her best today as well. She stepped out into the bright morning sun, which stung her eyes for a moment. With her delivery bag in hand, she headed towards the Magic Bird Delivery Guild, offering a cheerful good morning to someone off-panel. Her cheerful walk was abruptly interrupted. With a powerful thud, a massive, red-scaled dragon descended from the sky, landing directly in her path. Stunned and frozen in place, she could only stare up at the colossal beast. From behind the dragon, a familiar voice suddenly cried out her name. The voice belonged to a young man who stood calmly before the imposing creature, seemingly its master. Her shock melted into joyous recognition. A wide smile spread across her face as she called out to him, "Doran." On a bright morning, Doran greets Giselle, explaining he was just returning from delivery. With a warm smile, Giselle greets him back, remarking that he gave her quite a shock by dropping in from the sky. She looks up toward the sky with admiration, exclaiming how cool dragons are. Inside a nearby building, Doran checks on her, asking if she was scared since it was her first time seeing a dragon outside the stables. She cheerfully confirms she is fine. At the service counter, the innkeeper notices the large stack of letters Giselle is holding. He asks if she wrote them all herself, and she confirms she did, adding that she would like to send them via carriage mail. Letting out a wide yawn, she admits that she stayed up all night writing and is now half asleep. The innkeeper chuckles, glancing at a sign that ranks dragon mail as the most expensive delivery option. Giselle declines the faster method, stating the price would make her eyes pop out. Doran enthusiastically suggests dragon mail, noting it can reach anywhere on the continent within a day. The innkeeper, however, considers the sheer volume of letters and calculates the cost, stating that even with a loyal customer discount, it would be around 8 silver and 4 copper coins. His curiosity piqued. Doran turns to Giselle and asks about the purpose of sending so many letters to nobles. She explains that she was suddenly fired from her job. With newfound determination, she announces her plan. Since people want the alchemy candy she makes, she decided to send out sales announcements to them directly. Doran smiles warmly. He admits he still can't understand why she was fired, but praises her for already moving forward toward her next path, noting that it's very characteristic of her. Giselle smiles back, taking in his encouragement. She listened as Doran continued his offer of help, suggesting she could always come to the delivery guild if she found herself in trouble. He mentioned their dorm is a fine building, even equipped with a bath. He then went further, proposing that if she didn't like the dorms, he could even buy a house for her on a spacious plot of land near the castle gate. The sheer generosity of the offer overwhelmed Giselle, bringing her to tears. She stammered an apology, clearly flustered and not having fully processed his words. Doran, slightly exasperated, reminded her that he had just been saying something quite important. After their conversation, they parted ways for the time being, waving goodbye from a distance. Giselle found a rhythm in her new life. She enjoyed hearty meals at the inn, slept soundly under a warm blanket, and dedicated herself to her alchemical work under the supportive watch of the innkeepers. Her hard work paid off, and soon she had produced a set of beautifully crafted candy bottles, ready for her new products. She then began the process of branding her creations, carefully engraving her name, Giselle, onto the glass. She decided to change the style of her signature from the one she used while at the Alchemist Guild. This act of signing one's work is a time-honored tradition. Every alchemist engraves their name into what they create, even if it has only been a month since they started learning, and even for a single low-grade item. This signature was more than just a name. It served to prove the work was her own and to hold her accountable as the producer. With a look of determination, she affirmed that from now on, this new signature would be her mark. Just as she was reflecting on this, the baker's assistant approached, mentioning that her part of the work was done. More importantly, she informed Giselle that Granny Vanessa was there and wanted to talk to her. Giselle looked over in surprise as the elderly woman waved. She cautiously opened the door, calling out to the visitor who had just arrived. An elderly woman stood in the entryway, her back to Giselle. The woman turned, a knowing smile on her wrinkled face. "So you're Giselle, are you?" she asked, introducing herself as Vanessa, the innkeeper guildmaster. Standing behind her, a younger woman in a formal suit watched with a severe expression. Once inside, Vanessa settled into a chair and began to explain. She recounted how she's always hearing about Giselle from the landlady, who dotes on the young alchemist as if she were her own daughter. Vanessa lamented that she tries to counter by bragging about her own daughter-in-law, but the landlady's praise for Giselle is relentless. The lengthy explanation left Giselle looking utterly bewildered. As Vanessa continued her tale, her bespectacled assistant interjected, agreeing with the sentiment but firmly urging the guild master to get to the point. The sharp reminder seemed to startle Vanessa, while Giselle watched, still trying to process the situation. Her focus regained, Vanessa looked directly at the young alchemist and made a stunning declaration. "Today, I've come to scout you." The word hung in the air, and Giselle could only echo it in disbelief. "Scout?" Grandma Vanessa holds one of Giselle's alchemy candies in her palm, presenting a sudden business proposition. She asks the young alchemist if she has any interest in selling the candy for real. Giselle is visibly taken aback, uttering a quiet, confused, "huh?" She leans forward with an eager, almost conspiratorial grin, her eyes fixed on Giselle, awaiting an answer. Giselle, still processing the unexpected offer, looks on with a bead of sweat on her cheek. Vanessa's voice booms as she presses for a decision. What do you say? Flustered by the intensity, Giselle stammers, trying to understand the logic behind the proposal by asking if there is any actual benefit for the Innkeeper Guild in such a deal. The elderly woman calmly reassures her that she would be free to leave and join another guild in the future if she wished. She then outlines the terms. The Innkeeper Guild associates would purchase the candy from Giselle and sell it at the same price, with the goal being to secure a supply for their members. The commitment would be for 1 year, with potential for future discussions on increasing sales. After considering the proposal, Giselle raises her hand decisively. She agrees to the initial production quantity, stating that for the first 3 months, she will prepare about 200 of each variety. Future quantities, she adds, can be discussed based on those initial sales figures. The guild assistant then steps forward to clarify the financial details, confirming that payment for the candy will be made in cash upon delivery. Grandma Vanessa affirms this, and the assistant adds that they will provide Giselle with a monthly sales report. Seeking full transparency, Giselle asks if she will also receive the sales data for each specific variety. Upon receiving confirmation, a smile spreads across her face. She realizes that this arrangement will allow her to help the landlady and the others, and seems manageable enough to continue even if she finds another job. With newfound resolve, she formally accepts the offer to join the Innkeeper Guild and immediately asks where she can get this month's batch. Her practical question is met with a surprising response from Grandma Vanessa, who announces that she has also included a small celebration gift. Giselle is startled, exclaiming in disbelief. Vanessa explains that the gift is a personal one. She confides that her back had been giving her terrible trouble, and she hadn't slept so soundly in ages until recently. She insists that Giselle take the gift without hesitation. Touched, Giselle quietly thanks her. At that moment, the guild assistant speaks up, informing Giselle that the batch of candy she had requested earlier is already finished. She asks if Giselle would like to take it home with her now. The young alchemist is stunned by the speed and efficiency, stammering a yes in reply. She returned to the room, apologizing for the wait, only to find another person had joined the meeting. The newcomer, an elegantly dressed woman, confirmed Giselle's identity. Giselle was taken aback, realizing there was one more person she had to meet. The woman introduced herself with an air of authority. Stephanie, the guild master of the Full Moon Lake Merchant Guild. Stephanie noted Giselle's flicker of recognition. Giselle was indeed stunned, identifying Full Moon Lake as the exclusive, referral-only merchant guild located in a prime district near the castle. Guild Master Kudo explained that the landlady had let Stephanie in because they were acquaintances. She listened intently, her gaze sharp and calculating as she absorbed the information. Having heard about the interesting candy being sold at the Oliver Tree Inn, Stephanie explained that she had come to propose an exclusive distribution deal. With a wry smile, she conceded that she seemed to be a step too late. Stephanie gracefully stated that if the Innkeeper Guild had already taken Giselle in, she would give up on exclusivity. Guildmaster Kudo grumbled in response, asserting that if Full Moon Lake gained exclusive rights, their prices would make the candy unaffordable for common folk. Stephanie coolly replied that such was the nature of a merchant guild. Instead of conceding defeat, she pivoted. Please supply a few batches to my guild as well. Giselle stared, utterly bewildered by the turn of events. Stephanie pressed on, promising to trade at a very fair price. Guildmaster Kudo expressed his disbelief, questioning why she would negotiate for a product she hadn't even tried. Stephanie dismissed his concern, stating that since the Innkeeper Guild master herself came to negotiate, there was no room to doubt the candy's effects. With a confident smile, Stephanie made her offer, an initial order of 100 bottles. The number left Giselle and Kudo speechless. As Giselle mentally calculated the cost, Stephanie added that her estimate of 100 was, in fact, quite conservative. She listens as Giselle explains her position. Giselle acknowledges that while a large, reliable request is ideal for a new business, she wants Stephanie to place an order only after being fully satisfied. The huge amount of money involved is precisely why she feels this is necessary. She elaborates, stating her desire for customers to see the effects of the alchemy candy for themselves, just like the people who sent her letters of gratitude. If she misses a business opportunity because of this principle, she reasons that she is the only one who loses, a risk she is willing to take. Hearing this, Guildmaster Kudo warns Giselle that she was lucky her first offer came from the reputable Innkeeper Guild. A shadier organization would have exploited her. Stephanie adds that the inn's landlady is very discerning, and even she might have been turned away at the door if not for her own connections. After a brief, thoughtful pause, Stephanie relents with a sigh. Fine, I get it, she concedes, agreeing to take only the samples for today. Giselle beams with relief. With the negotiation concluded, Stephanie departs in her elegant carriage. From the inn's doorway, Giselle and the innkeeper's wife watch her go. As the carriage disappears, the innkeeper's wife turns to Giselle, who stands frozen in a daze. She gently asks the young alchemist if she is okay. Giselle lets out a long sigh, the tension finally catching up to her. She murmurs that everything just happened so suddenly. The innkeeper's wife smiles warmly and makes a practical suggestion. With so many additional requests, won't she need to go out and buy more ingredients? The thought strikes Giselle with the force of a revelation. This realization jolts her into action. "You're right," she exclaims, suddenly energized and dashing out the door. As she leaves, she thrusts a small pouch into the innkeeper's wife's hands, asking her to look after it for a bit. Watching Giselle run off, the innkeeper's wife smiles fondly, remarking on the young woman's boundless energy. Her expression quickly shifts to alarm as she feels the pouch's weight. "Wait," she calls out, realizing the bag is packed with gold and silver coins. "This is important. It's quite dangerous, you know." She runs with a bright, determined smile, her mind already jumping ahead to a pleasant task. She thinks to herself that she should start making pudding for their snacks soon. With a grunt of effort, Giselle carries a heavy cauldron up to a large, timber-framed building, finally setting it down as she arrives. Inside, she holds the cauldron with a proud, determined smile. She announces her plan to make a large batch of alchemy candy, mentioning that she has received requests from the Innkeeper's Guild. Following her declaration, she carries the new cauldron into her workspace and places it with a solid thud onto a long wooden desk next to another one just like it. She beams with satisfaction, glad she made the purchase. A memory surfaces of her seeing the alchemy cauldron on sale for half price the day before yesterday and rushing to buy it. Looking over her new setup, she reflects on how the landlady provided the desk, giving her more room. Until now, one cauldron was her limit, but with this space, she can now make 3 types of candy simultaneously. The thought fills her with a warm, wonderful feeling. With a look of pure determination, she claps her hands together over the cauldron, ready to begin. "All right, let's get started," she declares. As she begins by pouring a liquid into the cauldron, she fondly remembers the former guild master, Oral. He often encouraged her, saying her dedication to her craft was a good quality and that everyone has things they are good and bad at. Bolstered by the memory, she finishes pouring, satisfied with the amount. Her focus shifts to the next step. While the cauldron begins to heat up, she turns to her desk to prepare the other ingredients. The process is now underway. Steam rises as she stands over the cauldron, diligently stirring the bubbling mixture within. Much later, under a starry night sky, she sits before an empty plate. With her hands pressed together in a gesture of thanks, she sighs in contentment. The meal was delicious. She finishes her meal with a satisfied smile, and the innkeeper is pleased to see it, noting that he prepared extra just in case. Giselle clasps her hands, expressing her gratitude. She enthusiastically declares that she'll eat heartily again tomorrow. The innkeeper reminds her that a craftsman's body is their most important asset, far better than collapsing from malnutrition. Despite his encouragement, Giselle worries aloud that she might get fat from eating so many of her favorite foods. The innkeeper then proposes that they make fruit tea the next day. He reminds her that she wanted to try the version served at a fancy cafe, revealing that it's actually quite simple to prepare. Surprised, Giselle asks what kind of fruit he would like to use. He cheerfully decides on orange, and Giselle agrees it's a good choice. As they chat, Doran arrives. The innkeeper suggests they invite him as well, reminding Giselle of their promise to have a drink together. She eagerly asks if that's all right, and Doran simply agrees. The innkeeper's wife gives her approval from the kitchen doorway. Overjoyed, Giselle thanks the innkeeper, calling him Pops, and says she's looking forward to it. Later, she gathers the leftover candies that didn't fit into the prepared bottles, deciding to put them in a basket for now. She places the full basket on a nearby table, yawns, and decides to call it a day. In the quiet of the room, a small, dark, furry creature with large, glowing eyes peeks over the edge of the table, its gaze fixed on the basket of sweets. Elsewhere in the inn, a young woman with long, light hair casually eats one of the candies while mentally planning her morning chores. The flavor suddenly hits her, and she freezes mid-thought. Her eyes widen in astonishment at the delicious taste. Standing in what appears to be a storeroom, she briefly wonders if she'd somehow heard a guest's voice from so far away, before realizing the delightful sensation came from the candy itself. In her room, Giselle stops short, her eyes wide with shock. The basket she had left out now contains a massive, fluffy, white mound. She stares, utterly bewildered, and questions what this new thing could possibly be. The fluffy mound then shifts slightly, and a contented voice murmurs, "Ah, so tasty." Giselle's astonishment deepens into disbelief as the realization hits her. The fur ball just spoke. At that same moment, elsewhere in the inn, the young employee who had sampled the candy is startled from her sleep. She hears a faint, sleepy voice and, still groggy, dismisses it, wondering if someone is merely talking in their sleep. Back in Giselle's room, a wave of relief washes over her as she realizes the sound went unnoticed by others. The creature, oblivious, simply continues to murmur about how tasty its meal was. Realizing this is a phenomenon beyond her understanding, Giselle quickly grabs a cloth to wrap the creature. She recalls that dragons are said to possess vast knowledge, and the thought occurs that one might know something about this strange being. Holding the now sleeping fur ball securely in her arms, her expression hardens with resolve. She decides on a course of action. She will consult both Doran and Mr. Dragon to get to the bottom of this mystery. Carrying a large cloth-wrapped bundle in a basket, Giselle comes to a sudden halt. She looks up, startled, at a building sign depicting a dragon, marking the beginning of her next endeavor. She spots her acquaintance, Doran, who is busy at his desk. With a relieved and hopeful expression, she calls out his name to get his attention. He turns to greet her, remarking that she's up early and asking if her visit is urgent. Giselle explains that when she woke up, the mysterious bundle was simply in her room. From within the basket, a small creature peeks out, questioning her statement. Doran urges a frantic Giselle to calm down. She quickly explains that she thought he might know something about it, revealing that it's some kind of creature that was speaking human language before it fell asleep. He smiles reassuringly, telling her not to worry and expressing his happiness that she felt she could rely on him. Giselle looks visibly relieved by his words. Apologizing for interrupting his work, he suggests they go to the dragon's den. They arrive at the den, where a large, red dragon turns its head towards them. Upon seeing Doran, the dragon questions his presence, asking about work. The dragon's eye glints with sudden understanding. It murmurs that it sees, but Doran, left in the dark, looks on in confusion and asks what the dragon means. With a teasing tone, the dragon suggests that Doran has finally found his mate. A flustered Doran immediately shouts back that it's not like that at all, while Giselle watches, puzzled by the exchange. He clarifies to the dragon that his only goal is to identify the creature inside the basket. The dragon repeats the word creature with curiosity as the bundle begins to stir, revealing a pair of fluffy ears. The creature fully emerges from its wrappings. Doran mutters that he's never heard of a raccoon dog that can speak human language. In a flash of light, the creature transforms into an ornate lamp, leaving both him and Giselle utterly stunned. She stares at the object, a realization dawning. The lamp looks exactly like one she made and registered at the Alchemy Guild. Even the intricate chamomile flower pattern is identical, though this version has a fluffy tail protruding from its base. The dragon confirms her assessment without a doubt. As Doran questions if this means the creature is a spirit, the great beast affirms it, adding that it is a spirit with a particularly delicious scent. In a flash, the lamp reverts to its raccoon dog form. The dragon recoils slightly, realizing this small creature is the source of the enticing aroma. Terrified, the spirit holds out a handful of candy, offering it as a substitute to save its own life. Her eyes widen in surprise as she recognizes the sweets. It's her own candy. The spirit eagerly offers to give all of the candy away, prompting a brief, amused thought from Giselle about its commendable attitude. Doran, however, steps in, chiding the creature for trying to give away property that isn't its own. The spirit panics, fearing that if the candy isn't enough, it will be eaten after all. With a gentle smile, she tells Doran it's all right and asks him to give the candy to the dragon. The great beast, however, interjects, stating with authority that as a gourmet, it has no interest in eating spirits. She then offers the sweets directly to the dragon, explaining that while she normally advises humans to eat only one piece per day, she is unsure of the appropriate amount for a dragon. The dragon accepts her offer with a simple word of thanks. Seeing this, the small spirit beside her chimes in, offering to help as well. As the tension subsides, Doran turns to the dragon for a final confirmation, asking if the spirit poses any threat. The dragon reassures him, explaining that the little creature should be fine. It clarifies that spirits react in kind to malicious intent, and this one's docile nature proves their own intentions are not hostile. The spirit, seemingly pleased, holds up a piece of candy. The great beast savored the treat, its expression one of pure delight. Doran noted with a smile that the dragon seemed to have taken a real liking to Giselle. The dragon confirmed the candy was indeed delicious and eagerly demanded more, prompting Giselle to quickly offer another handful. He regretfully informed the creature that they had no more to give. The dragon recoiled in disbelief, its previous delight turning to sharp disappointment as it insisted on receiving more. Its desire for more candy unfulfilled, the dragon's sharp eye then fell upon the small raccoon dog spirit standing beside Giselle. It addressed the creature directly, issuing a surprising command. The spirit was to form a contract with the young alchemist. The command stunned both Giselle and Doran, who could only stare in wide-eyed disbelief. A contract, they both thought, their surprise echoing each other's. The dragon then clarified the terms of its proposed arrangement. The spirit was not only to form a contract, but also to assist Giselle in her candy making, ensuring a future supply. Giselle looked down, bewildered by the sudden turn of events, as the small spirit clutched a piece of candy in its paws. A small, fluffy raccoon dog-like creature considers its options. It resolves to make a contract with Giselle and help with her candy making, projecting a simple, one-word question. Help? The dragon offers a reward for this help. Lots of candy to eat. The creature immediately agrees with immense enthusiasm, declaring its willingness to do it. As the creature celebrates, Doran turns to Giselle, his expression serious. He cautions her not to make decisions without consulting others, reminding her they need permission from the innkeeper and her father first. His concern mounts as he internally panics, thinking she's about to adopt a simple dog or cat. All the while, the small creature floats near him, eagerly repeating its desire for a contract. Giselle, now holding the creature, gently tempers its excitement. She tells it to wait, explaining that since she is staying at the inn, she cannot make such a decision on her own. Her explanation is cut short by the innkeeper, who peeks into the room with a look of mild confusion. He gestures toward the creature and asks if she just picked up a stray dog. Before anyone can respond to him, Dorian cries out in surprise, "Father!" The large red dragon has entered the room. The dragon states that he heard Giselle was here and came to deliver an urgent letter. The innkeeper, now holding the creature in a small basket, looks on as the dragon clarifies the situation. It's not a tanuki, he explains, but a spirit in the shape of one. The innkeeper asks what the difference is. The dragon elaborates that as a spirit, it is like a stuffed animal. It doesn't need food and doesn't excrete. He then declares his intention for the spirit to make a contract with Giselle. The innkeeper can only mutter a confused question about the contract. Leaning in intimidatingly, the dragon looms over the startled innkeeper. He assures him that there are benefits for Giselle in this arrangement, leaving the man to flinch back in surprise. As a discussion about the spirit contract continued, Dorian explained to a concerned Giselle that to master alchemy, a spirit support is essential. He gestured towards the small creature, noting that for her goal of improving candy production, this particular candy-loving spirit was the ideal choice. Hearing this, the innkeeper, who had been sternly observing, broke into a relieved chuckle. He gave his approval, stating that he would, of course, lend his power to the endeavor as well. With the innkeeper's blessing secured, the dragon laid out the terms. He would gain valuable dragon knowledge in exchange for candy. Dorian then clarified the arrangement for Giselle. The contract meant the spirit would help her make alchemy candy, and that same candy would serve as its payment. He continued, confirming that the roles and payment were now clear. The final step, he announced, was simple. Giselle just needed to give the spirit a name to formalize their bond. Giselle quietly considered what to call her new partner. A moment later, her face lit up with a bright smile. Pointing a finger in a gesture of inspiration, she cheerfully suggested the name Taechan. Dorian thought the name was perhaps too simple, but Giselle felt it was better than overthinking it. The innkeeper agreed it was good because it was easy to remember. The spirit itself was ecstatic, puffing out its chest and joyfully announcing, "I'm Taechan." Having received its new name, Taechan immediately turned to the dragon, paw outstretched, and demanded a treat. The dragon reminded the small spirit not to forget that the contract was only possible because of his help. Dorian then addressed Giselle, telling her to be sure to sell candy to the dragon, for which he would pay her properly. Giselle found his bold declaration somehow comforting, though she noted that the candy she had was originally a gift for the innkeeper's wife. He suddenly became very animated, loudly proclaiming that he had plenty of reward money from Adventurer Guild requests and dragon deliveries. He declared to a stunned Giselle that he could easily support her and 5 children, and could even buy a house at any time. His outburst left Giselle questioning just how much money he had. Dorian stammered, flustered by his own words about a house and kids. The dragon, with a sigh, calmly interjected that the price was merely 10 pieces per jar for 5 silver coins, adding to Dorian's embarrassment. He turned his attention to the dragon, suggesting they go hunting on their next vacation. The great beast, however, had a different plan. It instructed Dorian to find high reward requests for Giselle to ease her mind, demanding a large quantity of candy as payment. Dorian agreed, adding quietly that the amount should be something that wouldn't burden Giselle. Meanwhile, Giselle was making arrangements with her new spirit familiar. Ta-chan, sitting comfortably in a basket, informed her that jars wouldn't be necessary. It requested a slightly larger basket for its purposes instead. Giselle readily agreed, noting that this would allow her to reduce the price of the jars. She then turned to Dorian, a warm, appreciative smile on her face as she told him his help meant a lot. He returned her smile, a quiet understanding passing between them. With a grateful expression, she then thanked the dragon for its assistance. The massive creature accepted her thanks, offering its help for any future troubles, but pointedly reminding her that gifts would be required. As the arrangements were settled, Dorian seemed lost in thought. The innkeeper, however, voiced a practical concern, looking worriedly at Taechan and wondering aloud if the inn lady would even permit the creature to stay. With a soft clink, a cup is set down. Commercial Guild Master Stephanie has arrived, her expression a mask of confident amusement as she makes a simple acknowledgement. She approaches and Guild Master Vanessa from behind, placing a hand on her shoulder. Vanessa flinches, startled by the unexpected visit. The two guild masters now face each other. Stephanie suggests she thought it would be nice to have tea for a change, but adds that more importantly, she has something to ask. Wary, Vanessa asks what it is. As they sit in a private room, with Giselle standing anxiously in the background, Stephanie reveals the topic of her inquiry, the alchemy candy made by Giselle that they had discussed at the Olive Tree Inn. Vanessa's expression hardens with suspicion. She directly questions Stephanie's motives, asking what she is plotting. She states that she cannot imagine a merchant like Stephanie deciding on a large shipment without first inspecting the product. Her counterpart simply smiles, asking if Vanessa had known about Giselle all along. Stephanie confidently asserts that she is not reckless enough to begin negotiations without having done her research. She then reveals the true origin of her interest. About 6 years prior, she heard that the second princess, Melina, was particularly fond of a certain alchemy lamp. This rumor sparked her interest in the alchemist who created it, Giselle. Stephanie continues, explaining that she knows Giselle works at a place called the Spirit Cauldron. She muses on the fact that alchemy lamps are typically just considered magical tools for adventurers to use in cave explorations. And yet, she concludes with a look of dawning realization. The capricious Princess Melina orders these specific lamps every single year. Her gaze falls upon an image of an exquisite lamp containing a luminous, flower-like structure, clearly an item of immense value and artistry. She agreed that it was a fine idea. As Giselle mused about creating various types of candle lamps from heat-resistant glass, perhaps paired with fragrances, Stephanie looked on approvingly. Nearby, innkeeper Guildmaster Vanessa and Guildmaster Kudo observed, with Vanessa noting that Giselle was already so busy that she should probably restrain herself for now. Despite her outward encouragement, Stephanie's private thoughts were different. She honestly wished Giselle would focus on selling her valuable lamps, not candy. At that moment, Vanessa turned to Guildmaster Kudo with a knowing smile, teasing that he was only praising the candy because he had already tasted it. Kudo asked if it was truly that amazing, to which Vanessa replied that the candy changes one's world, though she admitted that might be overly high praise. Vanessa then pointed out that Giselle herself was enjoying some. As Giselle savored the tasty treat, she announced to the room that she was finished with her work for the day. Her demeanor instantly shifted from a serious artisan to a carefree young woman, a transformation that left Vanessa momentarily stunned. She couldn't help but remark on the incredible gap between Giselle's two personas. This prompted Vanessa to explain to Stephanie that Giselle's workshop, Spirit Cauldron, had always been somewhat individualistic. However, she recalled that it ran smoothly under the leadership of the previous guildmaster, Oral. Stephanie affirmed this, adding that Giselle was the very embodiment of Oral's management style. A memory surfaced of Oral standing supportively beside a younger Giselle. Her expression grew sharp as she laid out her prediction. Cutting Giselle off was a foolish move by the current guildmaster. She asserted that Spirit Cauldron would only see its product quality decline from now on, as the current master simply doesn't understand. She continued, stating that as a top commercial guild, they know it will be too late for the Alchemist Guild to look for new partners after their quality has already dropped. Vanessa acknowledged the tough situation and wished Stephanie the best. With a confident smile, Stephanie corrected her, proposing that they should both do their best, implying a partnership. As they spoke, Giselle walked off into the city, unaware of the plans being laid around her. She buries her face into the small creature's soft fur, letting out a sudden, gentle sneeze. She then greets the innkeeper, explaining that she just woke up and came straight outside, feeling quite hungry. The creature in her arms, Th-chan, seems to voice its own hunger. The innkeeper, holding a basket for the creature, looks at Giselle with concern and asks if she is all right. He remarks with amusement that Th-chan eats a great deal, wondering how it could still be hungry after consuming so much candy. He concludes that sweets must go into a special, separate stomach. The innkeeper's observation causes both him and Giselle to pause, staring at each other in mutual, wide-eyed shock. Th-chan, held in the basket between them, simply looks up with a questioning tilt of its head. The gravity of the situation settles in for the innkeeper. This moment marks Th-chan's official entry into the inn, a fact that fills him with sudden apprehension. Just then, the innkeeper's wife appears, broom in hand, her expression serious. She remarks that the creature has been around for some time, leaving the question of whether she will grant it permission to stay hanging in the air. She clarifies that since the creature seemed to be with her husband, she had simply let it be. She adds that she'd sometimes see it sleeping outside, completely vulnerable with its belly exposed. The innkeeper and Giselle react with audible surprise to this revelation. Overjoyed by his wife's implicit approval, the innkeeper enthusiastically promises to build Th-chan a proper bed by noon. As the creature happily contemplates its first bed, Giselle asks if it wants something to eat. Th-chan immediately declares its love for apples. With Th-chan waving its paws in delight, Giselle turns to the innkeepers and expresses her heartfelt gratitude to both of them for their generosity. The small creature looks up at Giselle, reflecting internally on the kindness everyone has shown. The small creature, filled with gratitude, looked up to begin again, thanking Giselle. Inspired by this, Giselle's expression hardened with resolve as she agreed, realizing she too must work harder. Th-chan, brimming with excitement, then declared that it would do its very best right alongside her. She smiled warmly, holding the creature close. With a sense of formal partnership, Giselle stated that they would work well together from now on. Th-chan happily agreed, formally introducing itself to Giselle, who accepted with a joyful yes. Inside her workshop, Giselle is busy at her counter when a familiar voice calls out to her from the doorway. Her companion, the raccoon dog, Th-chan, gestures towards 2 jars on the shelf, asking if they are preparing to use 2 different kinds of sugar for their recipe. Giselle smiles and clarifies that one jar actually contains salt. She explains its purpose. It's a polishing material for the herbs, which allows them to better absorb magical water and maximizes their effects. The creature tilts his head, completely baffled by the alchemical explanation. To help him understand, she uses an analogy, asking if he knows the small hole behind the inn's laundry area where rainwater gathers. Th-chan confirms that he does. She explains that the salt works the same way, creating tiny holes in the herbs for magical water to collect, which energizes them. Tae-chan is amazed by the concept. They briefly discuss which candy to make, with Tae-chan stating his preference for the red variety. He finally grasps why the candy is so tasty. With a sudden burst of excitement, Tae-chan leaps into the air, announcing that it's his turn to contribute, catching Giselle by surprise. The little creature hovers over the mixture, chanting a playful song to make the candy tasty. Amused, Giselle joins in, wishing for a large yield as bubbles begin to form in the pot. Upon finishing, Giselle stares in disbelief. The batches yielded far more candy than usual, even though the ingredient amounts were unchanged. She glances at a proud Tae-chan and wonders if his cheering power was the cause. She smiles and thanks him for his help. His moment of pride is cut short by a loud stomach growl, and he sheepishly admits that he's hungry. He happily munches on a treat, exclaiming how delicious it is. Beside him, Giselle smiles, glad that he enjoys it. As they sit outside the inn, Doran arrives and stops in his tracks, surprised to see Giselle working at the counter. She explains that thanks to Tae-chan's help with the candy making, production increased so much that she found herself with extra time. Doran's attention shifts to Tae-chan, just as a nearby group of adventurers swoons over the creature, remarking on how cute and fluffy he is. Curious about what Tae-chan is eating, one of the adventurers from the group staying at the inn approaches and asks Giselle if they can buy the same thing. Startled, she quickly agrees. Tae-chan enthusiastically promotes the candies, explaining that the red ones taste like strawberries while the blue ones, his favorite, are a little sour. He adds that the refreshing green ones are best eaten before bed or in the morning. Hearing this, Doran asks for 4 green ones, and Giselle reflects on how helpful Tae-chan is. With a bright smile, Giselle tells Doran that since Tae-chan arrived, more guests have been staying at the Olive Tree Inn. He seems happy to hear of her success. From within the inn, a voice praises them both. Good work, Giselle and Tae-chan. Later, the innkeeper's wife finds Giselle, handing her a letter that has just arrived. As Tae-chan cheers, the woman tells Giselle that dinner is ready and that she should rest now. Giselle thanks her. She moves to a quieter spot to read the letter. Her expression turns serious as she takes in the words, the name Stephanie visible on the page. She continued to read the letter from her rival, Stephanie. It contained a business proposition, a meeting with a designer to discuss new designs for candy pots. The idea of special candy pots caught her by surprise, leaving her to ponder the unexpected offer. Her thoughts were interrupted by the innkeeper's wife, who rushed in with good news. She announced that they were running out of individual fatigue recovery candies and that a customer wanted to place a new order for alchemy candy. Seeing the letter, Tae-chan expressed surprise, but Giselle, overjoyed by the demand, declared it was great news. Hearing that everyone loves her candy, Giselle beamed, finding the news truly encouraging. She immediately promised to bring more stock. Tae-chan waved happily, celebrating her success. As she and Tae-chan left the inn, their spirits high, the scene shifted elsewhere in the city. Inside a stately building, a fist slammed down onto a desk in sheer frustration. The source of this frustration was Guild Master Kudo. Sweat beaded on his brow as he gripped his head, his face contorted in anger and confusion as he wondered what was happening. At the alchemy guild known as Spirit's Cauldron, a new commission is underway. The new Guild Master Kudo sweats over the paperwork, frustrated. He complains aloud about the time it is taking to complete what he sees as a simple alchemy lamp. His stress mounts as other guild members voice their own complaints. They question the nature of the guild, lamenting the overly detailed design and the impossible 6-day deadline. It is a job requested once a year by the royal family, one that helped their guild grow to prominence and cannot be interrupted, even with a change in leadership. One of the alchemists curses their predicament. He thinks to himself that perhaps they should have kept Giselle, the girl they recently fired, until after this crucial delivery was finished. An image of a worried Giselle flashes through his mind. Meanwhile, Guild Master Kudo pores over the order specifications from Second Princess Melina. The requests are bafflingly poetic, calling for effects like a gentle breeze blows through and requiring complex color mixing for each piece of glass. He mutters that he's never heard of such a request. A finished lamp is then presented to him. It is a plain, functional-looking lantern. The guild master stares at it, utterly perplexed, and asks what exactly it is. The alchemists who crafted it are equally dismissive. One wonders if it's some kind of magical toy that gives off light, while another scoffs at the idea of paying a fortune for such junk. Having brought the item for official presentation, the guild master's face twists in fury as he demands to know why they brought him this. At the royal court, a nobleman inspects the lamp with clear disdain. He states that it is completely different from the one delivered last year and coldly asks the guild representative if his eyes are blind. He confirms this is indeed the item they ordered. The crushing realization dawns on Guild Master Kudo. He grits his teeth, sweating profusely as he finally understands the true purpose of the Spirit's Cauldron Guild. He thinks that it's top-grade work, just as he suspected. A vision of Giselle's determined face confirms his fear. She knew this would happen. Before the court, Second Princess Melina holds up a far more intricate and beautiful lamp, labeled Kuto. She points out that the producer is different and directly asks why they didn't let Giselle make it. Another guild member realizes their folly, stating that Giselle would never create something so half-done, and it dawns on him that the princess ordered from Spirit's Cauldron specifically because she wanted a lamp made by Giselle. She listened with cold disapproval as Guild Master Kudo attempted to defend himself. With misplaced confidence, he told the royal delegation that he had simply disposed of the guild's burden, claiming Giselle was only capable of making beginner items. He then brazenly shifted the blame for the delayed delivery onto her, a sentiment echoed by one of his remaining members who suggested they blame the girl for everything. His audacious lie was met with a wall of silent, furious judgment from the royal entourage. Kudo's face contorted in sweat-drenched panic as he finally registered the gravity of his misstep. Breaking the tense silence, the senior royal official addressed the trembling guildmaster. He announced his intention to investigate not only the current state of the Spirit's Cauldron, but also the identity of whoever recommended Kudo for the position. The guildmaster could only stammer in confusion, asking what he meant. The official's gaze was hard as steel as he clarified his intent. He was directly questioning Kudo's very fitness to hold the title of guildmaster. Princess Melina then spoke, her voice laced with disappointment. She declared that casting aside a uniquely talented alchemist as a burden was foolish. She fondly recalled the original philosophy of the Spirit's Cauldron, which she had admired, to develop individual strengths while everyone compensated for each other's weaknesses. A memory surfaced of the previous guildmaster, Oral, warmly encouraging a young Giselle. The consequences of that day were swift. Half a month later, Kudo knelt in a desolate alley, a broken man. He could only lament, wondering just how much value that girl, Giselle, had truly possessed. His downfall became public knowledge. Newspapers across the city carried the headlines. The Alchemy Guild Spirit's Cauldron was suspended. The current guild master's corruption had been revealed, and in doing so, he had incurred the spirit's wrath. As citizens absorbed the news, another announcement was made simultaneously. A large-scale Royal Alchemist recruitment exam was to be held. The stated purpose was to hire the excellent alchemist who had left the disgraced guild, an opportunity many aspiring talents would not want to miss. The senior royal official confirmed that the broader goal was to acquire talented alchemists in general. He then clarified the true objective of the entire endeavor. The real target, he stated, was the one-of-a-kind alchemist, Giselle. And so, across the kingdom, the stage was set for a new chapter to begin. She had established her new base of operations in a quiet, two-story building with traditional timber framing, nestled on a peaceful street. Her business was already underway, with her companion Tae-chan excitedly eyeing a bowl of freshly made alchemical candies. With a bright smile, she announced that the candy was ready, just as she welcomed a visitor named Doran. She told him he could pick from the basket, but also presented a special jar just for him. He reacted with a flustered laugh, remarking that this was a familiar situation. Giselle playfully reminded him that the last time it happened, he ended up in a fight with a dragon over his candy. Her smile softened as she insisted he take it, explaining that she had put an extra of his favorite fatigue recovery candy. Visibly touched by her thoughtfulness, he could only manage a quiet word of thanks. As he reached to give her payment, another voice called out her name. Giselle turned, surprised, to see Oral approaching them. The moment between her and Doran was broken. His thoughts of what to do next time trailed off. Seizing the moment before it was lost completely, he turned back to Giselle with a hopeful smile and asked if they could go out together. The sudden proposal left her momentarily speechless. Doran mentions to Giselle that he has heard of a shop in a neighboring country that serves delicious pancakes topped with flowers. He then turns to her with a bright smile, suggesting they ride the dragon and go together. She is taken aback by the casual offer to ride a dragon, but happily accepts. Doran, pleased, notes that he is quite excited to give both Giselle and Tae-chan a ride. With the plan settled, Tae-chan excitedly chimes in that it will be eating pancakes too. Doran says he will speak with the proprietress, leaving the exact date of departure up to Giselle. He finds the inn's proprietress, who listens to the plan with a warm smile. She thinks a trip with Doran sounds lovely, noting that business at the inn is quiet this time of year anyway. She suggests they should go the day after tomorrow. Giselle, her hands clasped together in delight, thanks the proprietress profusely for her understanding and promises to bring back some souvenirs from their trip. Back in her workshop, Giselle hums a cheerful tune while meticulously arranging small, spherical creations, her mind clearly filled with happy anticipation for the journey. While she works, she reflects on Doran. He seems to enjoy everything she gives him with such gusto, always calling it delicious. This leads her to the realization that she has no idea what his actual preferences are. As she gently pets Tae-chan, she clarifies in her thoughts that she wants to know his favorite foods, not that she harbors a different kind of affection for him. Her thoughts of the upcoming outing for pancakes bring a bright smile to her face. She notes with amusement that Tae-chan's happy humming seems to be boosting her alchemical production rate once again. Before their departure, the innkeeper surprised Tae-chan with a gift. The raccoon dog is overjoyed to see a custom-made outfit, asking if it's really for it. The proprietress is glad she finished it in time, and the innkeeper exclaims how cute it is. Tae-chan, finding the new clothes a perfect fit, cheers with delight. As they get ready to leave, Giselle smiles down at Tae-chan, telling it the new outfit looks great. From a window, The proprietress waves them off, wishing them a safe journey. Giselle calls back that they are off. Outside, the preparations are complete. Dorian leads the immense dragon up a wooden ramp towards a large tent, ready to begin their journey to the neighboring country. He greeted Giselle with a good morning and a small gift, some candy he had made. Tae-chan, held in Giselle's arms, noted how thoughtful the gesture was as Giselle returned the morning greeting to Dorian. With their morning pleasantries exchanged, the three of them took to the skies, soaring high above the landscape on the back of the great red dragon. As they flew over the neighboring country of Lacarilla, Dorian called back to his companions, asking if they were all right and not scared. Giselle cheerfully replied that they were fine, and Tae-chan added its own reassurance. The dragon gently touched down in a clearing. Dorian noted that he expected as much, while Giselle, feeling invigorated by the flight, thanked the creature for the ride. As the dragon prepared to depart for its stables, it reminded Giselle and Tae-chan not to forget souvenirs. Giselle waved, promising to buy something delicious. She and Dorian then walked through the town, with Tae-chan still in her arms. Giselle observed that the bustling atmosphere reminded her of the delivery guild where Dorian works, a sentiment he seemed to agree with. Upon entering a shop, a welcoming proprietor greeted them. Giselle asked if it was all right for Tae-chan to join them, explaining that it was a spirit. The man was initially startled when Tae-chan introduced itself, but quickly recovered, assuring them it was no problem at all and inviting them to take a seat. Seated at a table, she began to look through the menu, immediately noticing the sheer variety of options available just for pancakes. Her eyes were also drawn to a seasonal dessert described as a fruit sandwich, which looked equally delicious. She turned to Dorian, suggesting they order the pancakes and perhaps the fruit sandwich as well, judging from the picture that it might contain strawberries. With a bright smile, she proposed they share everything, and he readily agreed. He then pointed to another item on the menu, asking about a chestnut option. He suggested it looked like something Giselle would enjoy, showing his consideration for her tastes. He waves to get the shopkeeper's attention, confirming their order. Both Giselle and Tae-chan are visibly excited, thinking about how delicious the food will be. The shopkeeper approaches, thanking them for their patience. A moment later, their food arrives. The seasonal fruit sandwich and a stack of chestnut pancakes, both looking absolutely delectable. They all dig in with gusto. Giselle, with a bit of cream on her cheek, exclaims how delicious it is. Dorian agrees wholeheartedly, adding that everything is exceptionally good. Even Tae-chan enjoys its portion with delight. The taste is so incredible that Giselle's eyes sparkle. Before she can even speak, Dorian senses her desire and suggests they order one more. Giselle and Tae-chan both shout their enthusiastic agreement. They share a happy moment, smiling at each other across the table as they continue to enjoy their wonderful meal. As their meal comes to a close, Giselle turns to Dorian with a sincere smile, thanking him for the invitation. He looks at the clean plates and replies with a simple, sure. Her expression becomes determined as she extends her hand, asking for the check. She is resolved to pay for their treat. Dorian immediately objects, insisting that he will pay. Giselle loudly counters that she is paying today. He brings up the alchemy candy she gave him, but she dismisses it, clarifying that it was a thank you gift for his dragon, not for him. Their friendly dispute settled, Giselle happily hands her payment to the shopkeeper. Dorian watches her, a warm and gentle smile on his face. While in a bustling town market, Giselle, holding the small raccoon dog Tae-chan, turns to Dorian and suggests they take a quick look around. Dorian readily agrees, thinking it would be a good opportunity to find some local specialties as souvenirs for the inn's proprietress and the others. As they stroll through the stalls, he brings up the idea of peaches. Giselle expresses her surprise, questioning if the season for them isn't already over. With a knowing smile, Dorian points ahead, suggesting they investigate. His gesture reveals a stall overflowing with a mountain of fresh, glistening peaches. Giselle gasps in awe at the sheer quantity. Dorian explains that this country cultivates so many varieties that they can be purchased all year round. He muses aloud that parfaits would be a good use for them, which gets an excited reaction from Tae-chan. Giselle, meanwhile, thoughtfully touches her chin, wondering if the peaches would also be good in fruit sandwiches. The thought sends Dorian into a fond memory. He recalls being with Giselle about 2 years prior, enjoying delicious peach parfaits together. He remembers the taste of the cream and peach jelly layered with vanilla ice cream, and how good it was. Returning to the present, he seems to have made up his mind. Giselle and Tae-chan react with pure delight, with the little creature letting out a cheer. Giselle expresses her confidence that the innkeeper they know will surely make something even better than what is sold in shops. With a determined smile, Dorian tells the vendor they will buy a large quantity of peaches, declaring his intent to eat both parfaits and fruit sandwiches. He sees this as payment for the ingredients. When Giselle offers to pay, he firmly stops her, insisting that since she paid for things earlier, it is now his turn. He purchases a box of peaches and then turns to a slightly flustered Giselle, asking her to be the one to request that the innkeeper make the desserts for them. She blushes but agrees. Meanwhile, back at their lodgings, the red dragon waits outside, tapping its foot impatiently. It grumbles to itself, wondering how long its companions intend to keep it waiting, calling them too slow. Upon their return, Giselle approaches the agitated dragon and offers it a plate of fruit sandwiches as a souvenir, apologizing for the delay. The dragon is taken aback. Giselle gently explains that it's not so bad to go out once in a while and promises to take both it and Taechan somewhere else again as the dragon eyes the offered treat. She presents the peaches to the innkeepers, asking if they could make fruit sandwiches and parfaits. She explains that the idea was inspired by delicious peach parfaits she once had in a neighboring country, and Taechan chimes in, also wanting a parfait. The female innkeeper questions her husband, who replies that while he doesn't mind making them, he has another idea. He turns to Doran, stating that he actually has a favor to ask of him as well. Surprised, Doran immediately offers to help with anything he can. The innkeeper then asks Doran to go to the Thaw festival and purchase something called Phantom Seasoning, a name that startles both Giselle and Taechan. He explains the seasoning's rarity, noting it's only sold during the single month of the festival. Because expert blenders create a new mix from scratch each year, its flavor is always different. This attracts chefs and merchants from all over, making it almost impossible to find on the general market. Giselle realizes that this rarity is why it's called Phantom. The innkeeper confirms her suspicion, admitting he has always wanted to try it, but has never been able to leave his work at the inn. As Giselle hesitates, thinking it would be a waste for Doran to go so far just for seasoning, he recalls that she had previously mentioned wanting to go to the festival. With a determined look, Giselle declares that she will go, and Doran happily agrees, thanking her. Doran confirms they will go together, much to the delight of the innkeeper, who laughs heartily. Taechan excitedly chants its desire to join them on the trip. Later, in the quiet of the inn's kitchen, Giselle stands before a cauldron, preparing for the journey ahead. Nearby, Taechan sleeps soundly in a basket. She reflects on the suddenness of it all. The Thaw festival had always sounded like fun, but she never expected things to escalate so quickly. Her thoughts continue as she realizes that since arriving in the royal capital, she has worked nonstop, never even considering a trip. Deciding she'll need to prepare a stock of alchemy candy for the journey. A flicker of uncertainty crosses her face. She and her companions, Doran and Taechan, enjoyed a hearty meal together, their spirits high in anticipation of the journey. The innkeeper, ever supportive, presented her with a bowl brimming with colorful, freshly made alchemy candies, the very provisions she needed for their trip. He offered her one to try, a small, brightly wrapped treat. Taking the candy, a gentle smile spread across her face. She brought it to her lips, a quiet chuckle escaping her as she savored the moment. For the first time in a long while, she had something new to truly look forward to. Nearby, with a full belly, Taechan slept soundly in a basket, content and peaceful. Within the grand halls of the Full Moon Lake Commercial Guild, Giselle holds Taechan, her expression a mixture of awe and nervousness. It is her first time setting foot inside such an establishment. A man with an energetic smile approaches them, extending a hand. He introduces himself as Bruno, a designer, expressing that it's an honor to meet her. Giselle, slightly flustered, returns the greeting. Bruno then turns his attention to Taechan, exclaiming that the guild's mascot Tanuki is even cuter than the rumors suggest. The meeting begins, presided over by the elegant merchant, Stephanie. She formally initiates the discussion and gestures toward the collection of sample items on the table, candles and ornate jars, inviting Giselle to examine them. Giselle identifies one of the items as a lamp and immediately voices a practical concern. Using heat-resistant glass would significantly raise the cost. Stephanie, however, waves off the issue with a confident smile. She assures Giselle that she will cover any additional expenses, urging the alchemist to focus solely on creating something truly exceptional. The focus shifts back to the creative process. Bruno cheerfully announces that they should decide on a design theme. He explains that, based on Stephanie's proposal, they have prepared concepts under the themes of sky, plants, and animals. He then adds a fourth, dwelling, which leaves Giselle looking puzzled. He enthusiastically explains that dwelling was a theme he added himself. The idea came to him after seeing one of Giselle's alchemy lamps. He felt a gentle kindness and warmth from it. He imagined how wonderful it would be to be enveloped in that gentle light during the true cold of winter, when both body and heart feel lonely. He continues, looking at her earnestly, stating that it is the very simplicity of her work that makes it so special and allows it to convey so much feeling. Giselle listens, a small, appreciative smile forming on her lips. The conversation returns to logistics. Stephanie agrees that the design is lovely, but notes that if they proceed with it, distribution would need to begin by the following month. Taechan, ever practical, chimes in from the table, pointing out that such a schedule would make the deadline very tight. Stephanie confirms that the deadline is indeed tight. As Bruno looks on with concern, Giselle quietly considers the challenge. A moment of internal reflection solidifies her resolve. She concludes that she can do it. She voices her confidence, surprising Bruno. Giselle explains that she has worked with similar shades of glass before, and the bottle's shape isn't much different from items she is currently making. Holding the design sketch, she appears ready and determined to take on the commission. She smiles brightly, offering to create a prototype by the very next day. Stephanie advises her not to overexert herself, but Bruno eagerly expresses his desire to see it, stating they can consider other themes if it doesn't match their vision. They are counting on her. As evening falls, Giselle returns to her workshop. Back at her workshop, she holds up a small bottle to explain her technique to Tae-chan. She reveals that she uses food peels to add color to glass. Tae-chan, perched on the table, is astonished to learn that color can be extracted from mere peels. She elaborates that while alchemy typically uses specific minerals for color, achieving soft tones that way is difficult. This led her to take inspiration from the methods of plant dyeing, using food and plants instead. Her first step, she explains, is to use magic to dry apple and onion peels and turn them into powder. The process continues by crushing several types of minerals and then mixing both powders together. She meticulously takes notes on the quantities used each time, refining the color until she is satisfied, admitting to herself that she doesn't dislike this kind of plain, steady work. Once the dye is ready, she mixes it with the glass materials and places everything into her alchemy cauldron. Sometime later, Doran enters her workspace and curiously asks about a wooden box she is holding. She opens it, revealing rows of small, corked bottles filled with various colored powders, explaining that it's where she keeps her favorite dyes that she's made so far. He points to one of the bottles, asking if the color of the lamp she transformed before is in there. She confirms that it is, and adds that she also keeps the material notes for each dye in the box as well. She smiles, admitting it's a color she really likes too. Ta-chan, now holding the small bottle, chimes in that it's his favorite color. The molten glass, infused with the dye, is carefully gathered in a ladle. As the glass core cools, she puts it back into the alchemy cauldron, picturing the final shape of the bottle in her mind. With intense focus, she channels her magic, her hands hovering over the cauldron as the bottle takes its final form. She silently hopes that whoever holds this bottle can spend a slow, peaceful time with it. With a final surge of effort, she declares it finished. Just then, the innkeeper peeks through the doorway, calling out to Giselle and Tae-chan that dinner is ready. He peeks into the workshop, a gentle smile on his face. Seeing Giselle and Tae-chan fast asleep at the workbench, surrounded by alchemical tools, the innkeeper offers a quiet piece of advice. Don't overdo it. All right, he murmurs, before presumably leaving them to their much-needed rest. The exhaustion from her recent project has finally caught up to the young alchemist. While standing near her stall, Giselle explains to Doran that due to a recent increase in orders, she has added a second alchemy cauldron to her setup. He notes that the limited production run of her special bottles is finished and asks if this means the apple muffin treats she makes from the leftover peels will also stop. Giselle sheepishly agrees, admitting she might have had enough apple sweets for a while. Doran remarks that it's impressive she's already delivered the Full Moon Lake exclusive bottles, then points out a sleeping Tae-chan, suggesting the creature simply enjoys helping her. Later, holding a newly crafted, brick-patterned box, Giselle decides she should go show her latest work to Stephanie and the others immediately. As she walks through a busy market street, carrying a large, fluffy, transformed Tae-chan, she silently hopes that everyone will like her new creation. She stops, startled by the sheer number of people crowding the area, noting that they are all carrying large bags and wondering if some kind of special event is taking place. Arriving at her destination, Giselle finds Stephanie already waiting. Stephanie expresses surprise at her early arrival, but says it's no inconvenience. As Giselle asks if Bruno has arrived, Stephanie muses that he hasn't, only for Bruno himself to burst through the door, panting and apologizing for being late. He is overcome with excitement, declaring how thrilled he is to see her new work. He explains that meeting both her and Stephanie ignited his creative drive, leading him to pull an all-nighter. Giselle proudly presents her bag, stating it's a piece she and Tae-chan worked hard on, which only makes Stephanie more eager to see it. With both Bruno and Stephanie watching with rapt attention, Giselle begins to open the small, brick-patterned box. The box is now open. Giselle asks for their opinion as Bruno and Stephanie stare, completely captivated by what they see. Bruno is the first to speak, calling the object stunning and unique, wondering aloud what hue it will produce as a lamp. Stephanie covers her mouth, agreeing with a simple yes, while Tae-chan, now back in its small form, chirps that it's beautiful. He enthusiastically suggests putting a candle inside the creation, an idea Giselle readily agrees to. She then elaborates on the design's dual purpose. Once the candy is consumed, the lid can be removed and the box turned on its side. By placing a candle inside, it transforms into a small, decorative fireplace. As the candle is lit, the box indeed becomes a miniature hearth, its flame casting a warm, inviting glow. The effect captivates them. Stephanie observes how the color subtly shifts with the flame, while Bruno is completely mesmerized, wishing he could melt into the atmosphere. Giselle, trembling with satisfaction, confirms that the gentle, flickering light is exactly what she intended. Stephanie turns to Giselle and gives her verdict. It is flawless. She thanks the alchemist profusely as Giselle nervously asks for her final thoughts, noting that the container can hold around 13 pieces of candy. Impressed, Stephanie marvels at Giselle's attention to business details. She then provides clear instructions. The size is perfect, but it should contain 3 different types of candy, 4 pieces of each, for a total of 12. Her delight is palpable as she sighs that the creation is wonderful. She eagerly asks if she can take the prototype home to show off to her designer friends, a request Giselle immediately grants. Later, the scene shifts and Dorian approaches Giselle. He asks if there is anything she would like to eat other than muffins. Taken aback by the sudden question, she hesitates before he abruptly declares that he wants candy. Her expression brightens with recognition. She asks if he means the special alchemy candy she made for him when he first arrived in the royal capital. He clarifies that he just wants regular candy, a request that brings back fond memories for her. He confirms with a warm, genuine smile, stating that is precisely the kind he wants. Giselle smiles warmly at his request. She agrees, promising to bring some for him next time. With that promise made, she waves goodbye to Dorian and departs from the building. She soon arrives back at the inn, announcing her return. A sudden cry of pain escapes her, however, catching the attention of the innkeeper. The woman's warm welcome quickly turns to concern as she asks if Giselle is all right. The innkeeper tries to brush it off with a laugh, explaining that her hands have just been very rough lately, and it's nothing serious. Unconvinced, Giselle insists on taking a look. She gently takes the woman's hand, her concern deepening as she inspects the palm. It is completely dry, looking as though it could crack at any moment. Giselle realizes with a pang of empathy that it must be painful to even touch water. Her expression firms with determination. As Thon, the raccoon dog, notes her return, the innkeeper expresses worry, questioning if Giselle isn't too busy producing alchemy candy. Giselle reassures her that it will be fine and won't take much time. With a confident smile, she declares her intention to create a special soap, gentle on the skin. Taechan eagerly offers to help, while the innkeeper, though grateful, cautions Giselle not to overwork herself. At the inn, Giselle approaches the innkeeper with a request, asking if she might see his hands for a moment. He obliges, and, as she inspects his hand, she observes that his skin isn't rough at all. The innkeeper confirms this, remarking that even the soap they currently use doesn't cause his hands to chap. With this information, Giselle decides she will make a special soap just for the landlady. The innkeeper provides the milk and oil she requested, also pouring a bowl of milk for Taechan, who accepts it with delight. With all the ingredients gathered, Giselle prepares to begin. She asks if they should start, beginning the process by cutting up the bar of soap the landlady had been using. She explains that it's made from what are commonly known as scrap magic stones. As the mixture heats in a cauldron, impurities begin to bubble to the surface. Giselle identifies this as a reaction with the magic in the scrap stones, surmising that the original soap's materials were not of high quality. She decides to skim the large amount of melted fat that has separated from mixture. Taechan offers a cheerful okay, as Giselle explains that the next step is to add the moisturizing ingredients, asking the small creature to cheer her on. He does more than cheer, suddenly providing precise instructions. Add the milk, stir 3.5 times, and then add the oil. As Giselle follows his directions, she cries out, struggling to keep up with the demanding stirring. She stirs frantically as Taechan explains that this is the cornerstone of soap making. If the speed is too slow, the mixture won't bind correctly. He shouts encouragement, and Giselle, after counting 50 rotations, switches to stirring in the opposite direction with a determined cry. The arduous process yields a perfect, shimmering sphere of soap. Taechan stares in awe, as it's known that without a constant stirring speed, achieving such a perfect shape is impossible. Giselle smiles, noting that the final product is about half the size of the original bar, a testament to how many impurities were removed. She suggests they give it to the landlady right away. Just then, the landlady herself appears, surprised the task is already finished. Giselle presents the soap, explaining that she added ingredients to improve the skin's repair function while maintaining its moisture. She presents the newly crafted soap to the landlady, who marvels that Giselle has made something incredible once again. With a smile, Giselle instructs her to use it for a while and to let her know if the dryness in her hands continues. Taechan chimes in, wishing the landlady a swift recovery. Giselle adds that she is simply happy to be of help, as the landlady is always taking care of them. Touched, the woman insists she will have to give them something in return. With a warm expression, the landlady decides to gratefully accept the gift, thanking both Giselle and Taechan for their kindness. A few days later, the landlady excitedly shows her hands to the innkeeper. She exclaims that Giselle is truly amazing. Her hands are completely clean and smooth in just a few days. The innkeeper looks on, agreeing that even her hangnails are gone and her hands look better than ever. Later, while holding Taechan near a large tent, Giselle mentions that there is something she wants to give to someone. Taechan, nestled in her arms, curiously asks what it might be. She approaches Dorian, who looks on in stunned silence as she presents him with a large, spherical candy. She explains that it's the candy he mentioned wanting to eat the other day, and since she had the chance, she wrapped it in special dragon pattern paper. Giselle then offers a smaller piece to the dragon, who looks on with excitement. She reassures them that it isn't an alchemy candy, so it's safe for the dragon to eat. The creature happily devours the treat, declaring it delicious. Giselle smiles, glad they enjoy it, as Dorian quietly agrees that it is very tasty. Holding the candy, Doran listens as Giselle humbly explains that it's just a simple candy tasting of brown sugar. He looks at it thoughtfully and replies, "This is enough." His gaze shifts to Giselle's bright, happy smile, and a look of startled realization crosses his face. Meanwhile, in a neighboring country, a young apprentice alchemist named Vivian sits in a sparsely furnished room. He sighs in despair, convinced there is no way he will be able to pass the upcoming Royal Alchemist recruitment exam. As he kneels on the floor packing a case, the young apprentice, Vivian, is reassured by his older brother, Felix. Felix tells him not to worry, explaining that their upcoming trip is essentially a practice run and that they have other business to attend to as well. Vivian looks up from his task, seemingly convinced, and agrees. He then looks up, a thought striking him as he murmurs Giselle's name. He asks his brother if she is the acquaintance of their grandfather they are meant to visit. Felix confirms this is correct. Meanwhile, at that very destination, Giselle smiles warmly. She holds a bowl for Tae-chan, who eats from it with pure delight, much to the amusement of a watching Bruno. In her workshop, Giselle looks on with a bead of sweat on her brow and a worried expression, while Tae-chan sits calmly in the foreground. She holds up a glistening, semi-translucent object and asks Tae-chan what it looks like to him. Without hesitation, he identifies it as a replica of his own tail, a conclusion Giselle seems to have anticipated. She admits her original intention was to shape the soap like flower petals. However, after noticing that the women working in the nearby shops had very rough hands, she decided it would be more helpful to make a large quantity of soap for them instead. Surrounded by a multitude of the tail-shaped soaps, Giselle beams with delight, overjoyed at the sheer quantity she has produced. In the foreground, Tae-chan's own tail wags in excitement. Holding one of the soaps, she reflects that she still needs much more training. With newfound resolve, she decides to distribute the soap to the neighbors, proposing it as Tae-chan's first official greeting to them. The creature eagerly agrees, exclaiming that he is coming. Elsewhere, a different kind of tension fills the air. Felix places a reassuring hand on his younger brother Vivian's shoulder, telling him not to be so tense. He reminds Vivian that this is just for the experience and promises to pick him up when it's over. Vivian nervously agrees. He watches his younger brother depart, then glances at a letter in his hand addressed to Giselle. With a determined look, he decides he should go see her now. The young apprentice, Vivian, proceeds through a grand stone archway into an opulent hall. He is immediately struck with awe at the sight of so many elaborate and high-quality alchemy items, realizing that the royal palace's standards are on another level entirely. A man with a commanding presence steps forward to address the assembled candidates. He introduces himself as Guebel, the chief royal alchemist, and officially begins the recruitment exam. He instructs everyone to wear their numbered tags, explaining they will be required to produce a specific item. Those who succeed will advance, while those who fail will be dismissed. As the test commences, a nearby candidate scoffs at Vivian's compact, portable alchemy kit, dismissing it as useless. Undeterred, Vivian focuses on his work. A moment later, with a soft clink, he finishes his task, the required potion now complete within a small vial. He lets out a breath of relief, focused on the bubbling cauldron before him. His mother's hand-me-down cauldron was a portable type, and he was lucky that it was the one left for him to use. With the initial brewing done, he mentally lists the next steps. Strain the mixture through a sieve, boil the medicinal herbs, and while they cool, prepare the bottle in another cauldron. He feels a small sense of gratitude that his cauldron was small, simplifying the process. Following his method with care, he soon stands before the examiners, his finished potion presented on their desk. "It's finished," he announces with a proud smile. The chief royal alchemist, Guebel, looks down at him with a neutral expression, acknowledging him with a simple, as the judges deliberate, a group of his supporters watches from the crowd. They remark to one another how, despite being so young, Vivian didn't seem flustered at all by the high-pressure situation. His composure is rooted in a lesson from his mother. He explains that she taught him that even if he is slow, he must create something that maintains its quality, because the people who drink potions are those who are injured or have lost their strength. His earnest philosophy proves successful. An official announces that those who pass the second exam are to wait in the back room. Vivian beams, already dreaming of the treat his brother promised to buy him if he made it past the second round. While he daydreams about cake or cookies, his pleasant thoughts are shattered. He is confronted by his aggressive rival and a haughty young woman, flanked by a guard. "We are alchemists belonging to that famous spirit cauldron," the woman declares, demanding to know what is so wrong with his potion. The rival shouts not to mess with them, leaving Vivian utterly bewildered by the term spirit cauldron. In another place entirely, Vivian's brother, Felix, examines a sealed envelope addressed to Giselle. He stands before the building that once served as the former guildmaster's headquarters. Inside that very building, Felix and Vivian listen as the ailing former master, Oral, lies in bed. He explains Giselle's past, revealing that she was an alchemist he had personally invited to his guild, Spirit Cauldron, but that she was forcibly fired after he left. Oral winces in pain, lamenting that old age is catching up with him. He wanted to see how she was doing at least once more, but his body fails him. Hearing this, Felix thanks him for the information and makes a decision. "It's impossible for you in that state," he says firmly. We'll go in your place. As the Royal Alchemist exam candidates await the next stage, the conversation turns to the notorious Spirit Cauldron Guild. Vivian mentions hearing it's been suspended. Admitting the news is unsettling. The female candidate, Laika, scoffs, expressing her irritation at being called a former colleague of someone from that guild, even as it's noted that they are all, in fact, former alchemists of Spirit Cauldron. Felix then brings up Giselle, observing that the exam's themes, healing potions and soap, are items she frequently made. Vivian agrees, speculating that the themes seem to have been chosen specifically to recruit her. Laika, however, remains unconvinced, pointing out that Giselle can't possibly pass if she doesn't even show up for the exam. He then holds out a small, wrapped candy drop for Laika to see. He insists she try it, promising she will understand despite her professed dislike for sweets. As Vivian looks at the candy, a flicker of recognition crosses his face. He is certain he has seen it somewhere before. She reluctantly unwraps the candy and places it in her mouth. A look of pure astonishment washes over her as she declares it delicious. More than that, she feels her body become lighter, prompting her to wonder aloud if it is some kind of medicinal confection. Felix smirks, asking if her reaction means she was worried about Giselle. Laika scoffs, asserting that someone with Giselle's talent could succeed anywhere. She then reveals that Giselle is the one making the candy. She's now with the Guild, selling her products there and doing just fine. At that moment, the truth dawns on Vivian. He exclaims that the candy is the same one his grandfather, Oral, used to have, recalling that Oral received a large quantity of them in a letter from Olive Tree, but refused to share even one. Her skepticism transformed into desire. Laika resolves to have her brother buy some of that candy for her, now convinced of its exceptional quality. Elsewhere, the time for deliberation is over. The chief royal alchemist, Guebel, addresses the examinees, announcing the commencement of the third exam. He reveals the theme for the final trial, the creation of an alchemy lamp. Vivian sits ready at his station, absorbing the challenge ahead. An announcement calls for number 72 to proceed to the next venue. A young man, Vivian, jolts in surprise, realizing it is his turn. As he stands, the theme for the third exam is declared, Alchemy Lamp. He reflects on the task, noting that, like the second exam, there is no specific purpose or shape required. His brother, Felix, then points to an ornate lamp on display, revealing it was made by Giselle. Felix adds that he is quite fond of her lamps, which have a great reputation, surprising Vivian. The focus shifts to Giselle's lamp, a masterwork of alchemy where every single detail, including the glass, is crafted with immense care. Felix chuckles, admitting that while he doesn't fully understand why, he really likes the lamp. Vivian, however, continues to stare at it with a puzzled expression. In stark contrast, the lamp that Vivian crafted is shown. Its construction is quite rough and unrefined. He hangs his head, acknowledging the crude quality of his work. Felix delivers a blunt assessment. Vivian has failed. He explains that while Vivian has talent, his lack of experience is evident, and this is simply a matter of practice. However, Felix's expression softens. He continues, stating that the lamp's design conveys an undeniable honesty. With a warm, encouraging smile, he assures his younger brother that he is sure he will become a fine alchemist. After the evaluation, Vivian approaches the official's desk and politely asks for permission to view the alchemy items displayed in the first venue before he leaves. Felix, seated beside another official, readily agrees, and Vivian thanks them profusely. Heeding his brother's advice to look at all sorts of things and keep learning, Vivian's face lights up with a determined smile as he agrees. The full implication of the permission suddenly dawns on him. Realizing they can view the royal alchemy items, he grabs a startled Felix, exclaiming that they should look together, and excitedly pulls him toward the display room. He and his brother Felix stood before the display of royal alchemy. As Vivian took in the sights, Felix turned to him with a question, asking if he had managed to meet Giselle. Felix explained that Giselle had been out, so he was unable to see her, though he did greet the couple at the inn. To his startled Vivian, he presented a large glass jar filled with colorful sweets, explaining that he had delivered their grandfather's letter and received this souvenir, Giselle's alchemy candy. Taking a piece of the candy, Vivian recognized it as the kind their grandfather eats. Felix remarked on how unusual Giselle must be to create even candy with alchemy, but Vivian noted that he had seen others with it at the exam venue and asked to inspect the jar more closely. Vivian stared down into the jar, his eyes wide as he examined the shimmering, intricately made candies within. He knew all too well the skill this required. Having just made an alchemy lamp in his exam, he understood that creating glass so pure and light was no simple task. A wave of inadequacy washed over him. He was still nowhere near her level. His hand clenched into a tight fist. Noticing his brother's distress, Felix gently suggested they head home. Before they could leave, a tall figure in a dark, hooded cloak stepped up behind Vivian, placing a hand firmly on his shoulder. The sudden contact startled both brothers. The hooded stranger spoke, his voice cutting through the air as he asked about the Giselle they were discussing. Throwing back his hood to reveal a face etched with desperation, the man grabbed Vivian's shoulders. "Do you mean the alchemist Giselle Starwin?" he demanded, his voice trembling with urgency as Felix watched in shock. In the street, a frantic, hooded alchemist grabs Vivian and Felix by the shoulders, his eyes wide with desperation. He confirms the name he overheard, asking with startling intensity if they are talking about Giselle Starwin. Startled, Felix admits that they don't really know much about her, not even her full name, as Vivian looks on with wide-eyed concern. His partial confirmation is enough. The hooded man learns she is staying at an inn and, leaning in with renewed fervor, demands to know which one. Before the boys can answer, a calm, authoritative voice cuts through the tension. The chief royal alchemist, Gue Bell, has arrived with an armored guard. He acknowledges the hooded man's presence, then informs him that he will confirm Giselle's intentions himself and that the man should rest. The hooded alchemist can only stare in shock as Gue Bell takes control of the situation. The hooded alchemist's shoulders slump in defeat. His face, etched with exhaustion, shows a flicker of understanding as he accepts the command. He turns to the two boys and offers a sincere apology for startling them. From behind, Gue Bell asks them to forgive his subordinate, explaining that while the man is usually dignified, he has not been sleeping well lately. Gue Bell then formally requests Giselle's location from the boys. When Felix asks his intentions, Gue Bell explains his desire to scout her as a royal alchemist. However, he clarifies that if she isn't interested, he will simply place a production request with her instead. He states that among the many excellent alchemists gathered for the exam, Giselle is truly exceptional. The weight of their actions dawns on Felix and Vivian. They bow their heads in unison, apologizing profusely for revealing Giselle's whereabouts to such important figures without her permission. Later, outside the inn, the female innkeeper reassures the worried boys, telling them not to fret about revealing the location. Beside her, the male innkeeper grins confidently, adding that if any strange people show up, they will be the ones to protect Giselle. He urges his younger brother, Vivian, to hurry, reminding him that they will miss the carriage back if they delay. Vivian, clutching a small, wrapped gift, quietly agrees. With his cheeks puffed out from a snack, Vivian looks up at his brother and expresses how glad he is that he came today. Felix looks back, listening intently. In response, he places a comforting hand on Vivian's head, smiling gently as he affirms that he understands. Meanwhile, at the inn, Giselle stands by a large wooden tub. After checking the water, she announces that the temperature is just right and prepares to add a jar of bath salts. Earlier, she had been distributing gifts to the townspeople who had helped her. The innkeeper holds one such gift, noting that Tae-chan even tied a ribbon on it. Giselle explains she's glad they are happy with the presents, adding that the innkeeper also deserves thanks for working so hard on the wrapping. The mustached shopkeeper, visibly moved, wipes a tear from his eye. He confesses he was worried for her after hearing she'd had a difficult time, but is relieved to see she is doing well and promises to make good use of her gift. Giselle reflects on their kindness with a warm smile. She feels that this place has become a second home and is deeply glad that this was where she came after leaving her village. Her peaceful soak in the bath is suddenly interrupted as Tae-chan emerges from the water with a splash, calling out for its boss to come over. A large, scruffy cat with a patch over one eye stalks forward. This is the boss cat, the one who stands at the top of all the animals in the area. It lets out a low meow. From the tub, Tae-chan invites the boss cat to get in, exclaiming how great the water feels because Giselle added bath salts. The imposing cat simply stares back. Felix smiles, holding up a decorative pouch. He realizes this is why everyone was eager to leave work for the day, correctly guessing that Giselle had prepared bath salts. He thanks Giselle for her help, complimenting her work as being faster and more precise than usual. Flustered, Giselle worries that she might have been a hindrance, while Tae-chan sits by her side. Elsewhere, Doran presents a large pouch to the red dragon, explaining that he assumed it was for a foot bath. The dragon sniffs the offering with a skeptical look, questioning why it is not food. From Giselle's shoulder, Tae-chan scolds the dragon for being picky about a gift. He asks if the dragon truly doesn't want it, emphasizing how wonderful Giselle's bath salts feel. He continues his pitch, calling a waste since both he and the boss enjoy the salts so much, describing the deeply relaxing sensation they provide. The dragon listens, a bead of sweat forming on its temple as it considers this. With great enthusiasm, he affirms just how good they feel, but then casually adds that it's fine if the dragon doesn't want them. This tactic works as the dragon glances over, its curiosity now clearly piqued. Its mind made up, the dragon points a commanding claw at a startled Doran, ordering him to prepare the foot bath immediately. Doran jumps, stammering that nothing is wrong, as Giselle tries to hide her amusement. Witnessing the command, Felix immediately takes charge, suggesting they get a bucket and boil water for the dragon's feet. Giselle offers her assistance, asking what she can do, and he gratefully accepts her help. Inside her establishment, Giselle looks up from her work, her attention caught by the sound of the front door. Beside her, the raccoon dog, Tae-chan, waves a paw enthusiastically, offering a cheerful welcome to the newcomers. Three adventurers step through the doorway. The man in the lead, wearing a distinctive headband, carries a serious expression, flanked by a younger companion and another with his hair tied back. Approaching the counter, Giselle greets them and asks if they are a party of three seeking lodging. The leader clarifies that they are not, explaining that they heard this is where they could find the alchemist, Giselle. He looks her over, surprised, and remarks that she is much younger than he had imagined. With a polite smile, Giselle confirms her identity. She is then presented with a sealed letter. The lead adventurer explains that they have come on behalf of Count Valhelm to purchase her alchemical candies. He introduces his group as the adventure party, Wildgrass Table. Giselle reviews the large order. 5 bottles of candy for back pain, 4 for stiff shoulders, and 7 for fatigue recovery. She calmly confirms that she will take care of it. The adventure leader's face lights up, asking in disbelief if she can truly have the order ready today. When Giselle confirms, he eagerly accepts, then hesitates, adding that there is one more thing. He asks if his party might also purchase 3 bottles of the fatigue recovery candy for themselves. Giselle beams and agrees to prepare them right away, asking them to wait while she writes a reply to the Count. As they wait, the adventurer with the tied-back hair holds one of the candies. He swallows hard, his expression filled with emotion as he wonders aloud if he'll get to eat this candy again. His companions, however, were already enjoying the fruits of their labor. The party leader remarked that the long journey was worth it, while another member savored the taste. The leader noted that their recent reward allowed each of them to purchase an entire bottle. As they celebrated, the party leader turned to Giselle, asking if they had purchased alchemical candy from her before. Beside her, Taechan expressed his delight that they enjoyed her sweets so much. The adventurer with the ponytail then explained their history with the candy. He recounted being on a mission, completely out of potions, and on the verge of collapse, when a passing adventurer gave them some. It saved their lives. The leader added that this stranger was their benefactor, just as Giselle was now, and he shook her hand with sincere gratitude. As she absorbed their story, Giselle found herself pondering the description of the other adventurers' clothing, realizing it was unfamiliar to this region. She mused that they must have traveled from a distant land, perhaps even from across the sea. Her thoughts were suddenly interrupted by Taechan, who pointed toward a newcomer, excitedly identifying her as Sandwich San. A confident woman with long, light hair appeared as if from nowhere, asking with a smile if Giselle had been thinking of her. Giselle, startled by the regular customer's silent arrival, stammered in surprise. The woman then inquired if a room was available for a 5-night stay, and Giselle quickly confirmed she could prepare one immediately. Pleased, the woman also requested her usual sandwich. As Giselle happily accepted the order, Taechan suddenly popped up, looking intently at the woman. He announced that the adventurers who had just received candy had arrived. He continued, asking the woman directly if they were talking about the candy she had received when she was in trouble, attempting to connect her to the story the other adventurers had just told. The woman, however, looked thoughtful and claimed not to remember, musing that she might have done such a thing, or perhaps not. Undeterred, Taechan excitedly added that she had also eaten a fruit sandwich. He then turned to Giselle, excitedly describing the food as having cream and fruit between bread, exclaiming how delicious it was. While the woman looked on with an air of familiarity, Giselle's eyes widened in shock as a realization struck her. Taechan, completely unaware of the impact of his words, puffed out his chest with pride. He declared that even though he had just tried a fruit sandwich for the first time in a neighboring country, the snack's his old man makes her still his absolute favorite. The adventurer, Sandwich San, asked Giselle if it would be possible to add a fruit sandwich to her order for the next day. Giselle, flustered, realizes the woman is making a request while simultaneously chatting with Taechan, who seems to be enjoying the attention. Giselle agrees to inquire about it. She then thanks Taechan warmly, admitting that while she thought she knew all about sandwiches, she has discovered there are still new kinds to learn about. Taechan puffs its chest out with pride in response. After the adventurer departs, Giselle decides it's time to sweep the entrance. Taechan, ever cheerful, announces that it will help. Giselle looks down, slightly surprised but pleased by the offer. As she begins her chore, the clatter of hooves on cobblestone draws her attention. A large, ornate carriage, clearly belonging to nobility, pulls to a stop directly in front of the inn. The carriage door opens, and 2 figures emerge. A stern-faced Laika and an unfamiliar young man with light hair and an equally serious expression. They both stare forward intently as the carriage comes to a complete halt. They approach Giselle, who stands frozen with her broom. Laika speaks first, her voice sharp. "We've finally found you, Giselle." Giselle is visibly startled by their sudden, intense arrival. The man beside Laika then speaks, apologizing for the abrupt visit, but insisting that their business is urgent and cannot wait. Flustered and caught off guard, Giselle stammers an invitation for them to come inside. Suddenly, with a great thud, a massive, fluffy creature lands between Giselle and her visitors. Taechan has transformed, protectively planting itself before them and bellowing a welcome. Giselle and her guests can only stare in utter shock. At the entrance to her shop, Giselle greets 2 new visitors, a man and a woman. She holds a squirming Taechan, apologizing for his behavior and chiding him to welcome their guests. The man reassures her that it's quite all right, asking if the creature is a spirit. He remarks that spirits are, by their nature, free beings. A sly smile crosses Giselle's face. She internally recalls hearing about spirits who, driven by their love for sandwiches, choose to live among humans and wonders if these two might be regulars of that sort. Watching from the side, Laika is impressed, thinking to herself that Giselle has managed to bring a high-level spirit under her wing, just as she'd suspected. Ta-chan, now calm, seems content in Giselle's arms. Once inside, Giselle assumes they've come for her alchemical candies. The man, however, quickly corrects her. He explains they're not there for sweets, but to commission an alchemical lamp. Their current one has reached its expiration, and they urgently need a new one made with the highest priority. She is taken aback by the demand. With an apologetic tone, Giselle informs them that she is not currently accepting production requests for alchemical lamps, stunning her visitors. His composure shatters. The man insists that it's no good. She must make one for them immediately. He declares that money is no object, and he will provide any amount necessary. Laika reinforces his plea, stating that it is absolutely essential. As the innkeeper arrives, Giselle asks the desperate pair why they don't simply commission the spirit's cauldron. The innkeeper explains that the workshop became inactive after the guildmaster was dismissed. The man cries out that no other lamp will do. It must be one of Giselle's. His desperate plea leaves both Giselle and Laika speechless. The intensity of the moment causes Giselle to reflect on her own past, remembering that making alchemical candy was the very first job she took on after being fired from a guild. She held her ground, her mind filled with the faces of the people who supported her and the many customers who relied on her alchemical candies. With her hand over her heart, she apologized sincerely, explaining that her current work was making those candies and she could not simply neglect it. Despite her refusal, the man bowed deeply, his expression turning desperate. He insisted that they could not accept a commission that would negatively impact her business in such a way, his plea hanging in the air as Laika watched in shock. Suddenly, a strange light pulsed from the corner of the room. Ta-chan, the small raccoon dog, swelled into a large, menacing lamp-like creature with a furious expression. It roared for the visitors to go home and stop bothering Giselle, startling everyone present. Taken aback by the bizarre and aggressive display, the man straightened up. He glanced at Laika and conceded, stating that they should take their leave for the day. As he turned to depart, he told Laika it was his mistake to arrive so suddenly and that they would return another day. While Laika called out to him, Taechan, still in its monstrous form, bellowed for them never to return. Giselle could only offer a quiet apology as the door closed behind them. The moment they were gone, the tension vanished. Giselle collapsed onto the counter, utterly drained by the confrontation, and let out a long, weary sigh. A familiar voice broke the silence as the innkeeper entered, thanking Taechan for protecting Giselle. The raccoon dog explained that it had a bad feeling, sensing the visitors meant ill will. The event caused Giselle to reflect that even her rival, Stephanie, who understood manufacturing, had never made such unreasonable demands. The innkeeper, having only caught the end of the exchange, laughed and remarked that Laika seemed to be a skilled negotiator, adding that making a contract with her would surely be profitable. Her words showed she had completely misunderstood the situation. Her comment caused Giselle's hand to clench into a tight fist on the counter. A quiet determination settled over her as she came to a realization. If she was to continue in this business, she must learn to handle such negotiations on her own. She turned to Ta-chan, a new resolve shining in her eyes. She asked the creature to keep what had just happened a secret from the innkeepers and Doran, declaring with a small smile that this was a problem she had to overcome by herself. She offers her snack to a pouting Taechan, who, after a moment's hesitation, happily accepts. Just then, the innkeeper's wife arrives with a tray of tea and cakes, apologizing for not being able to help earlier. She mentions that she thought she heard someone and asks if anything happened. Giselle cheerfully waves off the concern, explaining that a slightly strange customer had just come by. As she sets down the refreshments, the innkeeper's wife asks what kind of person it was. Giselle clarifies that it was a request to produce alchemy lamps, but she refused it and assures her that everything is fine. The woman expresses her relief, but advises Giselle to be careful with odd customers. Giselle's attention is suddenly caught by something just out of view, her expression shifting to one of puzzlement. The innkeeper's wife continues, telling Giselle it's important to say no to things she doesn't want to do, admitting she worries about her accommodating nature. Giselle smiles, replying that she is always happy to make anything for them, as she is so grateful for their kindness. She then adds that their wedding anniversary is approaching, and she is already thinking about a gift for them. The innkeeper's wife thanks her warmly for her constant thoughtfulness. Ta-chan excitedly interjects, mentioning the alchemy lamp she gifted them last year, which they still cherish. To emphasize his point, he suddenly transforms into a glowing, perfect replica of the lamp, startling both women. The innkeeper's wife marvels at the sight, exclaiming that it's incredible. A look of dawning realization crosses Giselle's face. She recognizes it as a lamp she designed for an order back when she was with the guild. As the woman notes its uncanny resemblance to the real thing, Ta-chan proudly boasts that he can do even more. The moment of surprise dissolves into shared delight as Giselle, the innkeeper's wife, and Ta-chan all laugh together. Her initial surprise gives way to pure delight. Giselle claps her hands together, a wide, unrestrained smile on her face. The innkeeper's wife shares in the mirth, her face crinkling with laughter. Between them, Tae-chan floats joyfully, its own transformation having broken the earlier tension and filled the room with warmth.